relationships I go through, and I give it all away just so I could say that. But I know that you're gonna be okay anyway. You know there's no rhyme or reason for the way you turned out to be. I didn't go and try to change my mind, not intentionally. I know it's hard to hear me say it, but I can't bear to stay. And I just know that you're gonna be okay anyway. Always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read fire. Oh, but I just couldn't take it. I tried out not to beg it, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it's your imagination make you what you want it to be. Because I'm sorry I do what I did, but it came naturally, and I gave it up away just so I could say that. Well, I know that you're gonna be okay anyway. When I tried to keep myself together after all the opportunities, I tried to stay true to you and I tried to do what you wanted from me, and I gave it up away just to hear you say that. Well, I know that you're gonna be okay anyway. Always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read fire. Oh, but I just couldn't take it. I tried out not to beg it, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read that. Always keep your heart locked tight. Don't let your mind read that. Oh, but I just couldn't take it. I tried not to beg it, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, but I just couldn't take it. I tried not to beg it, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. It felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire, it felt right. Oh, but I fumbled, and when it came down to the wire,
Good morning. Will you stand with us? Who breaks the power of sin and darkness? Whose love is mighty unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
I'm going to teach you a new song this morning.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was too full, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Sing it out. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. Oh, I deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No
For you will have me override, free of all her guilt, and rid of all her shame, and known by her true name. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. And it's why I sing your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Your praise will ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. Y'all can have a seat.
There's a hole, there's a black mark on her soul. In her hands is my heart, and she won't let go till it's scarred. Try to breathe, but I can't, 'cause the air she feeds me is damned. Got a touch like a thorn, 'cause the girl she's hiding horns. She got blood cold as ice and a heart made of stone, but she keeps me alive. She's the beast in my bones. She got two little horns and they give me a little bit.
You know, as I talk to leaders around the country who are leading initiatives that are going after the hearts of men, I hear a pretty consistent theme. God is on the move. God is doing something. God's stirring something up. He's stirring up the hearts of people. He's stirring up specifically the hearts of men. And men are rising up from the ashes of their lives and their stories, and they're becoming the sons and the brothers and the fathers and the husbands and the friends and the leaders that God has created them to be. So men of DCC, listen up for just a second. Our annual men's retreat is coming up in about 6 weeks. There are still slots left, and I want to challenge you to go with me. This year's theme is Si vis pacem parabellum, which means, it's Latin, it means if you want peace, prepare for war. The context of every single one of our lives and stories is war. And we're going to get away and we're going to talk about that. And so, no, you don't have to know how to shoot pool, and you don't have to have a cool beard, and you don't have to have tattoos, and you don't have to, chew or carry a knife or know how to fire a weapon. You don't need to know any of that stuff. We're going to have a lot of fun up there together in about 6 weeks, but we're also going to have some intense time. We're going to learn how to fight for our own hearts. We're going to learn how to fight for the hearts of other people. We're going to chase after this life to the fullest thing that Jesus came to bring us. We're going to work on becoming the men that God has created us to be. So listen, sign up before it's too late, and I promise you, if it's not a great experience for you, if the experience is not great, then Jason, our associate pastor who preached last weekend, he will personally refund your money for you, okay? So there you have it. He's out of town. He's in New York this morning with a bunch of our high schoolers on a mission trip, so I felt like I could say that. Hey, how'd Jason do last week, by the way? Yeah, he did good. Make sure you tell him that, okay? Make sure I gave him a hard week last week. I think he did really well with it, so make sure that you tell him that. Hey, if we haven't met because you were here for the first time last week or you're here for the first time today, my name is Greg, and I'm part of the team here at DCC. I'm more often than not the guy up here doing this at this part of the service, but I wasn't here last weekend because I was down in Phoenix with my second daughter, Sloan, who's incredibly awesome, and her new husband, my new son-in-law, Ethan, who's incredibly average. And no, I'm teasing. He's a good dude. I really like him. So I got to hang out with them for 3 or 4 days, which was amazing. But I also got to speak to a group of residents, some young adults who are in a residency program down there at a church called Christ Church of the Valley. Some of my friends lead it. It's a pretty big church. And they're getting ready to enter ministry in their lives and stories. So for me, I got to speak about life and leadership and ministry and Me Too and rescue and messy church and all the things that we do all the time in this place. And so that really, really fires me up. So all that to say, it was an absolute blast to be away. But as usual, I missed you. I couldn't wait to be back. I'm so glad to be back today. It is good to see you. And that's especially true if you are brand new. If you're brand new, you need to know, hey, you're in a safe place full of people just like you. That all of your stories safe and welcome here, and you're in a room full of people just like you. I hope in the 15, 20 minutes you've already been here, you've already felt and experienced that. I also hope that I get the chance to meet you out in the lobby by the fireplace right after this service is over, and I hope that you've already decided in a short period of time that you want to come back and do this again with us in the very near future. I'm hoping even next weekend that you and a busload of your friends show up for Easter services here next weekend. So special shout out and welcome to you if you're new. Thanks for taking a chance on us. Thanks for taking a chance on us. Thank you for spending a little bit of your precious weekend time with us. It really does mean a lot to us. So hey, we're in a series called Love Recovers. We're talking about this love that God has for us that really is there to help us recover from anything that life throws our way, and how it's the greatest demonstration of love ever as it plays out, specifically as it plays out in the last day or two of the life of his son, Jesus. And so we've been walking through that journey for the past 4 weeks, and it seems like every single week, with every day, every minute, every hour that we walk with Jesus on this journey, the story just gets harder and harder and harder. Jesus is betrayed, and then he's arrested. And then he goes through a series of unjust and unfair trials. And then they blindfold him and punch him in the face. Who did it? They slap him. They spit on him. They beat him. Then they scourged him. Jason talked about that last week. Then they beat him some more. Then they made him carry this heavy cross up this hill where they nailed him to the cross, and then he dies on the cross. That's where Jason left us in the story last week. And that's where we're going to pick up the story today. And as I was thinking about it, hey, so what is next in the story? That's kind of the question that we have. What's next in the story? As I was thinking about that, rather than me trying to describe it, I thought it'd be a lot better if we just watched it. So watch this. So that's the moment. Where's the hope in that? Where's the hope in that? You see that's kind of the question that we need to wrestle with today. I mean, when we get to this part of the story, this part of the story is typical. We just kind of kick back and we just kind of wait for Easter to happen, and yet it's during this period in between that something very, very, very significant, happens between Jesus' death on the cross and the empty tomb. And if you're a follower of Jesus in this day, this has to be a very hopeless period of time for you, and yet it's during this period of time that this period of time actually contains one of the most overlooked and yet hope-filled moments of all in the entire story. So what am I talking about? That's a great question. Let's jump back into the story together. Let's talk about it. Let's walk through it. And let's just see, all right? So we're going to be in Matthew today, and we're going to be in Hebrews today. Matthew 27 is where we're going to start today. So if you brought a Bible and you want to get it out, that's great. If not, there's some Bibles on the back table. If you can grab one right now, that's cool. You can hit our app. You can hit YouVersion if you want to do that, or you can just read with me on these screens. We got lots and lots of verses that we're going to read today. So Matthew chapter 27, starting with verse 50 is where we're going to pick it up. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. Right, that's where Jason left us last week. And at that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And the earth shook, and the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. And the bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city, or Jerusalem, and appeared to many people. I mean, that just kind of feels like The Walking Dead right there. But so there you have it. But when the centurion and those who were with him were guarding Jesus, when they saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified, and they exclaimed, "Surely he was the Son of God." Okay, so let's stop right there. If you keep reading in the story, here's what happened next. So this guy named Joseph of Arimathea comes to Pilate. He says, "May I please have the body of Jesus so I can bury it?" He gets permission. He takes the body. He cleans it up. He wraps it in linen. He covers it with spices. He puts it in his own tomb, his brand new tomb he had. He puts it in there. They roll this big stone in front of the tomb. Pilate puts his seal on the stone, and then he posts a guard at the entrance to the tomb. Now think about this moment. So that's the story. That's where we are in the story. If you are a believer or follower of Jesus and you've been walking life with him, this moment, this period of time has to feel pretty hopeless to you. Why? Because you just watched Jesus die on a cross. You don't really know. You don't think he's coming back. So you just watched him die on a cross as countless other people had done before him, right? I mean, the Romans crucified a lot of people this way. And now his body, his dead body is lying in a tomb, just like the bodies of countless other people that have gone before him. So this is really a pretty common and pretty ordinary occurrence, and there's not a lot of hope in this moment. So what is so significant about this moment? What is so significant about this particular period of time and what happens in this moment? I'm going to tell you. Now, are you ready? Because, listen, as I say this, it's not going to feel very significant. You're going to have to keep tracking with me. So here we go. Here's what's so significant about this moment. The curtain, the veil in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And you're like, is that all you got? Right? We're just talking about a little bit of fabric here? I mean, yeah. Yeah, see, not only, when Jesus died on that cross, not only was our sin covered once and for all, like Jason talked about last week, something else happened. Don't miss this. Because Jesus died on that cross, we have unconditional and unlimited access to the Father. We have unconditional and unlimited access to the Father. Now, here's my question before we talk about that. Is that a good thing? Is that really a good thing? When we think about unconditional and unlimited access to the Father, is that a good thing? And I think the answer is, for a lot of us, is it really depends. You're like, what? Yeah, it really depends on what? Here we go again. There's no way getting around this stuff. On the experiences that we've had with this thing that we do called church, and on our experiences with our earthly fathers too. Both of those things are factors that will affect our answer to that question. It's been over 35 years ago now. I was a junior in high school. Very, very small Christian school. There's like 18 people in our class. I mean, it's a tiny little conservative Church of Christ Christian school. A girl in our class decided end of junior year she was going to have a party. It was the night before the last day of school or something like, maybe in the last day of school. I can't remember that, but she's going to have a party, and I decided I was going to be really, really cool at that party, so I drank about a half a bottle of cherry vodka. Now, a few things about that. I wasn't a drinker at all, so you can imagine. Any kids in the room, listen, do as I say, not as I did. Please. Learn from my mistakes. Do not repeat them. Don't say, well, Pastor Greg did it. And your parents will say, yeah, and he was an idiot. And they're right. Okay, so just track with me with that. So I drank it. I got really sick really quick, and I passed out. And I don't remember the next 5 or 6 hours. I don't remember it at all. I have no memory. I remember my buddy shaking me really hard in the front seat of his car. Dude, you got to wake up. You got to go in the house. We were sitting in my driveway. He had driven me home. And so I stumbled into the house, and my mom and dad are sitting in the living. It's 1:30 or so in the morning. My mom and dad are sitting in the living room waiting on me, the very front room of this little house that we lived in. You're like, uh-oh. Yeah. See, my buddies thought it would be really cool to go to the high school that night, to leave the party, go to the high school, because the freshman girls were having a lock-in the school. And so, yeah, let's go see some girls, right? And so they go to the high school, and then they thought what would be even more cool is, let's take them out to the car and let them see Greg. I was passed out, my head was hanging out the open window, and I was just thrown up down the side of the car, and they thought that was funny, that the girls could see me. Well, the problem was one of the girls went in to the school and told my pastor, who happened to be there as a chaperone that night. And he got on the phone and called my mom and dad. And so there they are waiting on me. So I walk in the house, and my dad says, you don't look like you feel very well. I was like, Dad, they had this Mexican food at the party. Oh, it made me so sick. I said, I think I just need to go to bed. And I walked back to my room, and I sat on the bed, and I thought, man, I made it. And I started to take my shoes off, and my dad said, Greg, get in here. And so I go back in the living room. Honestly, I don't remember much of the conversation that night, but I will never forget the last thing he said to me before he walked out of the living room and into his bedroom and went to bed. He said this. He said, son, I'm so disappointed in you. I'll never forget that. Next day, my dad got honored at his work, and so we went. Obviously, I wasn't feeling very well, but we went. We went to this thing where they gave him some sort of award, and my dad, he couldn't really look at me. He didn't really make eye contact with me. He didn't have anything really to say to me, and it killed me. It broke my heart. See, of all the punishments that I received as a kid growing up, and I received a lot of them, right? But there was none for me. There was none worse than this moment with my dad. Son, I'm so disappointed in you. Now listen, I know some of you didn't have a father. Some of you have more extreme stories than me, and I'm so sorry for all you've been through. And it's like, man, that's pretty light. I get it, but it doesn't have to be extreme to be significant. You need to understand that about your story. This thing, son, I'm so disappointed in you. Here's my question. You ever feel like that's what God the Father's saying to you? You see, I don't know about you, but I grew up in church. I grew up in church believing that that's how God as my Father saw me, that he was constantly and continuously disappointed in me. Why? Because I kept screwing up, right? I kept doing these things. He said, don't do this, and I did it anyway. And then he says, do this, and I didn't really do that stuff. And so I'm like, I'm just a constant disappointment to my Father. And so we carry around this regret, this guilt, and this shame. And for a lot of us, here's the deal. If this God behind a curtain thing that we're going to talk about today, this God who stays behind the curtain, and then we got this person who goes there on our behalf, that just seems a lot easier for us. It's a lot easier than looking him in the eyes. God is my Father, looking him in the face and seeing his disappointment in me once again. So what has that got to do with this? What's that got to do with this story? Well, let's talk about that. See, here's the thing. I think it is so easy for us to gloss over this part of the story and just kick back and wait for Easter. It's so easy for us because all it is a mention of this veil or this curtain being torn to just skip over that and think, well, that can't be all that significant because it doesn't really say much about it there, but when actually nothing could be further from the truth. If you ever get the opportunity to go to Israel, I got the opportunity in December. If you ever get the opportunity to go there, you need to go, and you go to Jerusalem. I want to tell you something. Go to the museum, and I would really recommend that you go there first. Now, you're like, wow, you're not only a pastor, you're a tour guide. Yes, I am, and it's free. So there you go. You need to go there first. When you go to the museum in Jerusalem, you can see the book of Isaiah from the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's amazing. It's in a climate-controlled behind glass thing, but it's really, really cool. There's all kinds of cool stuff to see. We actually didn't spend near as much time as we could have there, but there's also something there that will really help you, okay? This is why I say go there first. There is a full-scale model of the city of Jerusalem as it was in Jesus' day that is really going to help you have some perspective as you actually walk through the streets of Jerusalem today. All right, so I'm going to throw a photo up here so you can see this model. Now, I'm going to hate it when this series is over because I can't use my laser pointer anymore, but here we go. All right, I'm going to show you something. So just to give you perspective on how big the model is, well, can you see that? Oh, there it is, little red dot. See these are people up here. You can walk all the way around this thing. So this is huge. It's like a third of the size of this room. Okay, the area we're focused on today is right here in the front. It's this is the temple. This is Antonio's fortress where Pilate was. Talked about that a few weeks ago. This is the building that we're really talking about, this gold roof building right here. This is what we're talking about. I'm going to throw another image up here to give you some more perspective. Okay, there it is. So that building, lost my little pointer again. That building is right there. It's the T-shaped building. If you look down here in the bottom right corner, you'll see that there's a front room. You enter from the right to the left. You see the steps there, and then there's a back room, okay? That's what we're talking about. The front room is the holy place. The back room is the most holy place, or the Holy of Holies. That line in between those two rooms is not a wall. Between 1 and 2, that's not a wall. That is a curtain. That is the veil. That's what we're talking about in the story today. Now, here's the thing. Matthew does not talk at all about the significance of this curtain. He doesn't. It's a little disappointing, but the good news is the writer of Hebrews has a whole lot to say about it, okay? In fact, he spends a big part of 2 chapters on it, Hebrews 9 and Hebrews 10. We're going to read a little bit of that. So Hebrews chapter 9 now, verse 6. When everything had been arranged like this, so all the stuff, you know, for the sacrifice in the temple, the priests, plural, entered regularly into the outer room, that first room, to carry on their ministry. But only the high priest, one specific person, entered the inner room, that back room, behind the curtain, and that only one time a year, and never without blood, not his blood, animal blood, which he offered for himself and for the sins of the people had committed in ignorance, okay? So the priest, in general, the priesthood, they can move in and out, in and out, in and out of the front room, in front of the curtain, okay? But only the high priest, one specific person, at one designated time of the year, could go behind the curtain with blood, animal blood, to offer it as a sacrifice for the sins of all God's people, for himself and the sins of all of God's people. Okay, so that is the system in Jesus' day. That's the covenant. That's the contract. That's the agreement. And then Jesus dies. Boom. And so what? Let's keep reading. Verse 11. Hebrews chapter 9. But when Christ came as a high priest of the good things that are now already here, he went through the greater and more perfect tabernacle that is not made with human hands, that is to say, is not a part of this creation. He did not enter by means of the blood of a goat or a calf, but he entered the most holy place once and for all by his own blood, thus obtaining eternal redemption. Okay, so here it is. Under the old covenant, the old way of doing things, only the high priest could enter the Holy of Holies, could go behind the curtain and be in the actual presence of God. In fact, in this day, they tied a rope around the leg of the high priest before he went back there in case he died while he was in there, so they could pull his body out because nobody dared step behind this curtain. Nobody else could go there. Okay, that's the old way. Now, what happened? Something just shifted in the story. Once Jesus dies on that cross, he pours out his blood on that cross. He becomes what? He becomes the high priest, not to do it every single year, once and for all, for every single one of us. And now we have unconditional and unlimited access to the Father. The Father's love for us and all he has for us. It is available not just in a specific place, all right? Not just in this specific place of, you know, the church, the temple, the tabernacle, whatever you want to call it. No, it's available to us anywhere. Unconditional and unlimited access to the Father anywhere. This is part of the significance of this veil being torn. Well, let's keep reading here. So there's more explanation down in verse 15, same Hebrews chapter 9. For this reason, Christ is the mediator of a new covenant, that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, now that he has died as a ransom to set them free from the sins committed under the first covenant. Okay, if you weren't here in week 1, we talked about this moment. We started this series off with the moment when Jesus is in this upper room. He's with his closest friends and followers, the disciples, and they have the Last Supper. We call it communion in this place. And he says this. He raises up the cup and he says, "This is the new covenant of my blood." In other words, fellas, the story is changing. There's a new deal on the table. That is the moment that the Hebrew writer is referring to here. Jesus is the mediator of a brand new covenant for us. He has appeared once and for all to take care of our sin issue by what? By sacrificing not an animal, but sacrificing himself. And so what? So there's no longer a need for animal sacrifice. There's no longer a need for animal blood. There's no longer a need for an intermediary or a go-between, and there's no longer a need for repetition. There's a new covenant, not the old covenant. There's a new covenant. There's a new deal on the table for all of us. Now, as you think about that, and you think about your own life and story, I have a question, and I want you to make it personal. Which covenant are you really living your life under? Another way to get at this, and the question I want to ask is my focus more on relationship or on staying right with? Is my focus more on relationship with God or on staying right with God? See, the reason I ask that question is because for the vast majority of my life as a church guy, as a church kid growing up in the church, my focus was on trying to keep the peace with and trying my best just to stay right with God. My guess is that's what the majority of us are doing. That's why some of us are here today. And here's what you need to know about that life. We will never, ever experience this life to the fullest thing that Jesus came to bring us if we are just simply trying our best to stay right with God. Ultimately, you know what's going to happen? We're going to lose heart and we're going to lose hope. That's why this story is so important for us. This veil being torn, this curtain being torn from top to bottom completely and totally changed this story. You know what it did? It opened the way. It opened the door for you and for me to have a deep, daily, intimate, personal, conversational relationship with the Father like we've never, ever had before. This is this moment in the story. And so what was once provided as a way for us to stay right with God, this is supposed to be done at a specific time, has now been transformed into this opportunity for a real relationship that's available anytime. Unconditional, unlimited access to the Father, not only anywhere, but anytime. There's a relationship that's available to us. And come on, let's talk about it. Relationships, what every one of our hearts long for, isn't it? I mean, think about it. I want you to think for just a second about the 2 or 3 or 4 relationships in your life as you sit here today that you value the most. You got it? Okay, now here's the question. How many of those relationships are based on you getting together one time a year, specified time at a specified place, for the sake of you doing something to make sure that you stay right with the person that you're in relationship with? 0. Right? In fact, that doesn't even sound like relationship, doesn't it? I mean, you know when I think about that? I think it sounds like AAA or AARP. You know, it's amazing how your illustrations change as you get older. I hate that, but I'm not a member of either, if you're wondering. But it doesn't sound like relationship. What's that sound like? It sounds like membership. Pay your dues, and we're good for another year. Here's my guess. That you won't, and you don't put stock in those kind of relationships. You don't put much stock in those kind of relationships. And yet, you know what? When I look back on my church life, that was exactly what I did. My focus has been so much more on just trying my best to stay right with God, more so than it has ever been on experiencing all that God has for me, experiencing God in my life and in my story. I didn't even realize that was available to me for most of my adult life. I didn't even realize that, right? There is so much more available in this relationship with the Father than most of us know. There is so much more available in this relationship with the Father than most of us have ever experienced. I needed some help figuring this stuff out. You know, I was thinking this past week about the first time in my life where I spent any really serious time at all with Craig McConnell over at Ransomed Heart. Passed away a year and a half ago. He's a good friend of mine. But I thought we were going to be together one time for 1 hour, and he was going to tell me how you do Ransomed Heart and bring this message in a church setting, and little did I know, he didn't even know. But we got together, and I just think about that relationship as it formed. What I thought was going to be 1 hour, one time, ended up being the deepest 8-year relationship of my life. And you know what happened? It started like this. Hey, let's meet at Starbucks. And then we got to the end of that meeting. It was like, hey, bud, how about same time, same place next week? And it's like, here's the address to my office. How about next week? Show up. And then it's like, here's my cell phone number. Hey, man, you want to grab lunch? Hey, let's grab some coffee. Hey, you want to go to dinner? Let's invite the wives. Hey, let's hang at your house. Let's hang at mine. Hey, we're going to be out of town with our daughters in California. Can you watch Sonoma, our yellow lab, and keep her while you're gone? Can you do that? Hey, let's go to Trinity. It wasn't a church, it's a brewery. Real relationship, okay? That's what I'm talking about. But it wasn't about, hey, once a year, we're going to get together, and we're just going to make sure that I'm good with you and you're good with me. It wasn't about that. I mean, that's not real relationship, right? What we're looking for is something that is just free. It's spontaneous. It's just not planned. And one of the best moments in our relationship, and yet one of the saddest moments came that way. It was totally spontaneous. I got a call from Craig. It was like 9 o'clock on a Monday night. I shot across town. We sat on his back patio. He was already out there. We drank a toast to Sonoma, his yellow lab. We told stories. We laughed, and then we walked up the hill. We got her up. She was up on the hill under a bush dying. And we picked her up, and we carried her to his Suburban. We put her in the back of the Suburban. We drove her to the animal hospital. We spent some time with her. And then they ended her suffering by putting her to sleep. And so lots and lots of tears together that night. And here's the thing, Craig could have called a lot of people that night. I lived all the way across town, but somehow, some way, he called me. And that night, I'll never forget that night. It meant so much to me. See, I loved our relationship. I miss our relationship. He's been gone a year and a half. You know why I'm okay today, though? Because Craig taught me what a relationship with the Father could really be. Let's be honest about this. None of us want a relationship that is reduced to a specific time for a specific purpose to make sure we simply stay right with. We're not interested in that at all. So here's the part that we often miss, okay? Don't miss this. God's not interested in that either. God is not interested in that with us either. We have been rescued. The love of God rescues us. We have been rescued for the sake of relationship. We've been rescued for the sake of relationship. Do you know what God wants from us more than anything else as we sit here today? And you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, God wants me to stop doing this and stop doing this and stop doing this and start doing this. And yeah, I need to do this. I need to do this. And I need to quit smoking and quit cussing and switch to light beer. And, maybe. You know what he wants from us more than anything else? He wants what he had with Adam and Eve in the garden before everything went to crap. He wants relationship with us. He wants to walk with us and talk with us, conversational, personal, daily, intimate relationship with us, walking through the garden in the cool of the day. That is God's heart. It is for you, and it's God's heart for me. See, this veil, this curtain that was in the temple, scholars tell us it was 35 feet wide. Okay, so you want perspective? I know it's hard to see, but that's the ceiling in this room, 35 feet. That's how wide it was. So take that and turn it this way. Guess what? It was twice as tall, 70 feet high. It's twice as tall as the ceiling is in this room. Boom. Jewish tradition says it was 4 inches thick. So what's the point? No person could have torn that curtain. No person. It was impossible for anybody to tear that curtain other than God, and God tore that curtain. Why? Because he said this. He said, nothing's going to separate you from me. No more. Nothing's going to separate you from me. Nothing's going to separate you from my love. No. And I don't want this to just be about you staying right with me. I want a real relationship with you. And yes, obedience is important. It is important. But God tore that veil so that he could invite us into something deeper, something better, something richer, something different. He tore that veil so that he can invite us into a deep, conversational, personal, daily relationship with him. And so as you think about your life, the old deal is gone. There's a new deal on the table. Is your focus more on simply trying your best to stay right with God, or is it on this real relationship with God that is available to you? That's a very, very important question. So the Hebrew writer, if you keep reading, continues to explain everything that's going on in this moment that we're talking about, and then ultimately concludes with this. Now we're in chapter 10, verse 19. Therefore, brothers and sisters, we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain that is his body. There it is. There it is. And so no. We don't need to be hesitant. And no, we don't need to be reluctant. And no, we don't need to be afraid. And no, we don't need to kind of limp into it, burdened down by all the things that we've done and the things that have been done to us and said about us. No. We don't need to do that at all. Despite how jacked up our stories are as we sit here today, I know how many times you've done it, who you've done it with, when you last did it, all that. Despite all of that, no. Here's the deal. Nothing separates us from the love of the Father, and we need to run towards him with confidence. We need to run to him with confidence. You're like, no, Greg, you don't know my story. I've done some bad stuff. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe I don't understand. I do know this. The curtain has been torn. You need to run to the Father. You're like, well, you don't understand. I'm an addict. I've done this time and time again. Same thing, over and over. And then I have a good period. And then I do it over and over again. Yeah, you don't understand, Greg. Maybe I don't, but I do understand this. The curtain has been torn, and you need to run towards the Father. You need to run with all you can to the Father. And here's what you're going to see as you begin to do that. He's already running towards you. He's already running towards you. See, this veil being torn, It's not only an opportunity for us to move towards the Father, it is evidence of a Father who's already moving towards us. So last takeaway for us before we get out of here today is this. Again, make it personal. My Father's always pursuing me. You need to know it. My Father is always pursuing me. Can I tell you something? That's why you're here. God has orchestrated circumstances. I don't know how. Boom, you're here. Why? Your Father is always pursuing you. We have been rescued. His love rescues us. We have been rescued, and we continue to be rescued. Ultimately, the Hebrew writer says it this way. I want to skip back to Hebrews chapter 4, read a few more verses. Therefore, since we have a great high priest, the greatest of all ever, final high priest, who has ascended into heaven, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest, Jesus, who's unable to empathize with our weaknesses and our struggle and our hurts and our pains. But we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. And so here it is. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. What do we need to do? We need to run towards God with confidence to get what it is that we need. You see, at the end of the day, Jesus dying on this cross, He not only covered our sin issues once and for all, He not only gave us unconditional and unlimited access to the love of the Father anywhere and any time. This veil being torn did one more thing. When this veil was torn, this thing is now not only available to a specified people. It's now not only available to Israel, God's chosen people, or a certain group of people, or special people, or chosen people, or a religious, or moral, or ethical, or church people. No. That veil being torn demonstrates this. This is available to everyone, to all people. The ultimate hope of this in-between time in this story, and this veil, this curtain being torn, is this. The love of the Father is available anywhere, anytime, to anyone. There's so much hope in this story. It's what we just sang about 30 minutes ago. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. It doesn't make any sense. Right? It chases me down. It fights until I'm found. It leaves the 99. What is the song talking about? It's talking about the story that Jesus tells in Luke chapter 15 of a shepherd who has a sheep, of 100 sheep in his flock. He leaves the 99, leaves them, right? The wolves can come and all that. He leaves them to find what? The one who's been lost so that he can rescue the sheep. It's the story that Jesus tells not too long after that of a father whose son goes off in sinful and wild living and blows his dad's money. And the father's sitting there, and he's not disappointed, and he's not disgusted, and he's not disillusioned. He's not angry with his son. He's not written his son off, and he's not sitting there waiting to punish his son or teach him a lesson. Read the story. It's a father who runs. He sees his son, and he runs as fast as he can to his son. To what? Not to punish him, to grab him and hug him and embrace him and love him and celebrate his return. It's talking about the story that's in John chapter 8. One of my favorite stories of all. Of this young woman who's caught in the act of adultery. Can you imagine that? Caught in the very act. And the religious leaders bring her in, and they throw her at the feet of Jesus, and they take a rock, and they're ready to stone her to death, and the law tells them that's exactly what they can do. And Jesus rescues her. He rescues her. He shows what love really is when he scares off these religious leaders, and he reaches out his hand, and he lifts her to her feet. See, Jesus, so many stories that show us what this love really is. Story after story after story after story of this Father, this loving Father who is pursuing us. The song sang it. I mean, the words of the song, they say it all, right? There's no shadow you won't light up. There's no mountain you won't climb up. There's no wall you won't kick down. There's no lie you won't tear down. Coming after me. This is your story as you sit here today. I promise you this is true. It is so, so true. And so is this. None of it. Not a single thing we've talked about today or in any other part of this series. None of it matters if Jesus stays dead. Spoiler alert. He doesn't. But that's next week. Before we get out of here today, I want to go back to this. Because of the death of Jesus on the cross, we have unconditional and unlimited access to the love of the Father through the broken body and the poured out blood of Jesus. Before we get out of here and sneak out of here, we need to spend a little time in that. And so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Please don't leave. If you leave now, you're going to miss the best part of today. You're going to disrupt yourself and you're going to disrupt the people around you. So please don't leave. If you're a parent, I want to tell you this. We're getting ready to take in an experience here. We're going to experience a lot of the path that we walked through over the last 4 weeks. I don't think it's all that graphic. I'm just going to tell you up front, we're going to see Jesus stumbling under the weight of the cross. We're going to see Jesus on the cross as the cross is being raised. If you have young kids with you and you don't want them to see that, then cover them up or hand them your phone, or maybe you need to step out. I hope not. I really don't think it's all that graphic, but we want you to make that call. We don't want to make that call for you. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pray. We're going to pass a tray, little cup of juice, a little piece of bread represents the poured out blood and the broken body of Jesus for all of us. If you're not a believer in Jesus, we're so glad you're here. You're not sure what you believe. You're confused about what you believe. You think all this stuff is weird. Or if you are a follower of Jesus and yet you know your heart's not in good space today, I just want to encourage you, just pass that tray to the person next to you. There's no shame in that. We really are glad you're here. If you're a believer in Jesus, I want you to take it today. I want to tell you, just hold it. I think you need to hold it. I'm not coming back up. We're not going to take it together, but there's going to be plenty of time for you to take it. Lindsay's going to do a special song for us. We're going to take in this experience. And after she finishes the song, there's going to be a minute or so of soft music. You'll have plenty of time to take it then. Okay? The love of Jesus rescues us. And so as we spend the next 2 or 3 minutes taking this look into what love really is, let's remember that it not only vindicates us, it not only rescues us from the consequences of our sin, that it opens us up. Unconditionally unlimited access to the love of the Father. That it opens the door to deep, personal, daily, intimate, conversational relationship with the Father. A Father who is not disappointed, not disgusted, not disillusioned, not angry with you. He's not finished with you. He hasn't written you off. A Father who could not love you more. A Father who pursues us and pursues us and pursues us so that we can experience every single bit of the life that His Son came to bring us. There is so much hope in this in-between part of the story. The veil, the curtain has been torn. So let's run to the Father. Let me pray for us. Jesus, I pray right now that you will just settle our hearts. We just want to take an opportunity to clear our minds. And so any preconceived notion that we have or any idea that we have or anything that we're trying to force or make happen in this moment, we just say no to that. We just create space. We create space, Jesus, for you to come and for you to show us. I want you to show us what love really is. Jesus, we just create space and time. We're just going to pause and we're just going to spend time. And we ask you to come. Jesus, show us what love really is. In your name, amen.
I gotta take a little time to think things over. I better read between the lines in case I need it when I'm older. In my life, there's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can face it again. Can't stop now. I've traveled so far to change this lonely life. take a little time to look around me. I've got nowhere left to hide. It looks like love has finally found me. In my life, there's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can face it again. Can't stop now. I've traveled so far to change this lonely life. I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me. I wanna feel what love is. I know you can show me. I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me. I wanna feel what love is. I know you can show me. Jesus, thank you for coming for us when we didn't come for you. Thank you for seeing us and rescuing us from a life that would have been miserable without you in it. In Jesus' name, amen. Will you all stand with us for one more song? The moon and stars, they wept. The morning sun was dead. The Savior of the world was fallen. His body on the cross, his blood poured out for us. The weight of every curse upon him. One final breath he gave as heaven looked away. The Son of God was laid in darkness. A battle in the grave. The war on death was waged. The power of hell forever broken. The ground began to shake. The storm was rolled away. His perfect love could not be overcome. Now death, where is your sting? Our resurrected King has rendered you defeated.
sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb is overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb is overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb is overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb is overcome. Forever He is glorified. Forever He is lifted high. Forever He is risen. He is alive. He is alive. Forever He is glorified. Forever He is lifted high. Forever He is risen. He is alive. He is
Yeah, all right. Hey, just have a seat for me real quick. A couple things before we get out of here today. That's just a preview for all the things that we have planned for next week. Our hope, our greatest hope is in the rest of the story. So I hope you come back next week. Hey, if you're new here today, you want to know more about getting connected here or next steps, go out the door, turn left, room called The Garage, great people there. If you would like prayer, we're serious about praying with people in this place that need prayer, want prayer. Be people under the screens to my right and my left. Right after the service is over, I'd love to meet you, talk with you, and pray with you. If you believe in what God's doing in this place, you want to partner up with us financially, be on mission with us. That's what we call it. Hey, we don't pass a plate or a tray or pressure people. We hang boxes on the wall by the doors if you're looking for those, or you can hit our app or our website if you're an electronic person and like to do it that way. I'll be out by the fireplace right after we're done here. Would love to talk with you too. Hey, two things about Easter next weekend, okay? So Easter's coming. Yay, it's been coming for a while and comes every year. Imagine that. So we got some things we need from you, please. So when you go out of here today, we got invite cards. We've got invite cards. We don't want any invite cards left in this place. We want them out on the streets. So would you pick 2 people this week, invite them to come with you next weekend. The invite cards are really cool. It says your seat matters. It tells people, whoever you hand the card to, you show up. We're giving $5 on your behalf to help foster kids and foster families in our community. So I'm hoping we write a real big check this year, thousands and thousands of dollars going to help foster families in our community. So grab two invite cards, please, on your way out. Don't leave them in the floorboard of your car. Hand them to your friends or family members this weekend. The second thing is this. When you walk out today, people will be behind the tables in front of the slat wall. We still need more help. I know we wait till last minute, but would you consider coming, attending one, and serving one service for us? Serve in some capacity here. Attend one, serve one, and then you're done for Easter weekend. Would you consider doing that? And hey, maybe consider coming to Saturday night services next weekend too. 2 Saturday night, 3 Sunday morning. We're creating an extra service, but this place is going to be packed. So if you just think about those things and you really jump on board with us and help us out, we're going to have thousands of new people coming next weekend and an opportunity to really serve them with excellence and help them bump into and experience Jesus. So we'd love it if you'd be about a part of that. So thanks for being here today. I hope you have a great lead into Easter week. I'll be out by the fireplace if you want to talk to me. Have a great week.
There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me
adrenaline. You will sustain me until the end. You are the only one. You are the only one. When you speak, dreams and reality collide. Your word rewrites my destiny. My life finds a new beginning. 'Cause you are my energy. Jesus, your presence is what ignites. Your truth is electric, the source of life. A moment with you makes me come alive, alive. When you speak, dreams and reality collide. Your word rewrites my destiny. My life finds a new beginning. 'Cause you are my energy. Jesus, you're everything I need and more. I follow you till the end. You are my strength. Jesus, you're everything I need and more. You are my energy. You're the everlasting God. You're the one who holds it all. I can't help but stand in awe. You are my energy. You're the everlasting God. You're the one who holds it all. I can't help but stand in awe. You are my energy. When you speak, dreams and reality collide. Your word rewrites my destiny. My life finds a new beginning. 'Cause you are my energy. Jesus, you're everything I need and more. I follow you till the end. You are my strength. Jesus, you're everything I need and more. You are my energy. You are my energy.
Drifting apart, getting harder to hold you. Days getting dark and the nights are growing cold. Are we burning out? Swept out of sight, rolling out on an ocean. Let's cut all the ropes and get lost in the moment. If our hearts are alive, maybe then they might send us back to the sun. Now I know that we're losing light. Our love is dying. I'm cold on the floor, like a fallen star that shines no more. Take me back to where it was before, when we were on fire. Fire. Head down, heading underground, feeling wasted. Cold to the bone, so alone I can taste it. Let's light it up. Streets are alive now and everything's racing. You're on my mind, running in my veins. If you it again.